I had to come from the south side, so didn't realise it would take so long. So my apologies. Welcome to the May meeting of the Gungahlin Community Council. Before we get into the agenda, and I do appreciate it's late, but we want to crack on, I just want to briefly acknowledge passing of Jason Hinder. Jason was a member of the Gungahlin Community Council and tragically lost his life while in Canada recently. I'd just like to acknowledge that. He was certainly a very enthusiastic and pretty larger-than-life personality in the Canberra community, so it's a tragedy for his wife and family. That being dealt with, I'd like to invite Ron Anderson from the Australian Federal Police to come and give us a bit of an update on the policing situation in Gungahlin. Haven't had the police visit the Community Council for, I'll say a couple of years, but it'll be about that. Certainly appreciate them making the time and invite them to come up and let us know how we're travelling.
And thanks for the opportunity. I also knew Jason, used to played rugby with him for the last few years, so he was certainly larger than life, and he enjoyed rugby, that's for sure. It probably has been over 2 years, because I've been the officer in charge at Gungahlin for the last 2 years, and so when I got the invitation, I was fairly happy to come along and get involved. Hanley asked me a number of questions about coming tonight and some of the things I was going to cover, so I might just launch straight into those. I don't have any specifics in relation to how we're sort of travelling compared to this time last year or this time last month, but I'm certainly happy to take questions, and as I mentioned before, I'm happy to tailor this report however the council may like it, and to whatever frequency they want to have us here. The first point that was raised was how can the community better engage with ACT policing. Well, compared to 10 years ago, it's a lot easier. With social media, with our particularly with our website, is probably the best avenue and the best way to get information to us. But there's more traditional ways to report things to us, or even just discuss some of the issues in your community. And probably the best way about reporting things is through Crime Stoppers, 1300 333 000, which can be done anonymously, and it's always that little bit of information that we don't have that can assist in crime prevention and crime detection. And it may not seem that important to you at the time, but it may be critically important to finding out actually what's happening. And the way I describe that is if you see something and you think it looks a little bit suspicious, it probably is. We're only talking about Moncrief and the number of houses that are being constructed there at the moment. And the last few weeks we've had quite a number of break-ins into houses that are at lock-up stage, but nobody's actually moved in, and people are stealing things like range hoods and white goods. But if you saw a tradie pull up at the front of the house and go in and do some work, you wouldn't think too much of it. But if they're coming out with equipment, such as a range hood or a dishwasher, then that is suspicious, and that's the sort of thing we want to know about. Also, we'll mention Neighbourhood Watch. There are a number of Neighbourhood Watch zones or areas within Gungahlin. Probably one of the most prominent is the Neighbourhood Watch zone in Ford and Bonner, which are quite active. They recently had like an open day stall at the Ford shops, and there's plenty of opportunity within Gungahlin for those Neighbourhood Watch zones to be established, and the AFP are very supportive of the Neighbourhood Watch program, and it's about exactly as I spoke about with suspicious behaviour. It's about reporting things that look suspicious and working with us to solve problems in our community. I'll leave the latest newsletter from the Ford and Bonner Neighbourhood Watch group, and I've also forwarded through some contacts for ACT Neighbourhood Watch who are quite active right across the ACT, and they'd be more than happy to help support the establishment of neighbourhood watch zones in Gungahlin. The crime rates in Gungahlin are no different really to the other areas of the ACT. Over the last year or so, we have seen an increase in the rate of property crime and different types of property crime. We've also seen an increase in cyber crime. But we've seen a reduction in things like motor vehicle theft and certain types of thefts from homes as a result of burglaries. Almost gone are the days where a burglar breaks into a home and steals a TV because they're not worth anything anymore. But when they do break into your home, they will go for quick items that they can that are disposable, so cash and keys to your car. Not so bad in the last few months, but the end of last year, quite a spate of break-ins where they were going in and simply taking keys to high-valued cars and just breaking into the house just to steal the car. So we're sort of advising people, rather than leave your keys somewhere obvious, like on the bench and hanging up on a key rack, like everybody does, consider putting them somewhere that's not so obvious. The website, and I go back to the website because only 3 or 4 years ago we didn't have this technology, but now I can click on any suburb and tell you what crime types are occurring by suburb right across the ACT. It shows that in Gungahlin there was around 800 or 850 crime incidents, and they could be everything from theft of a push bike to breaking into a house. The actual website shows something like 1,100 crime incidents, but that includes the almost 300 traffic infringement notices that would have been issued in Gungahlin for various reasons, and not only by members in my patrol. The patrol of Gungahlin, or my responsibility, is pretty much bordered by the Barton Highway, the Federal Highway, and the ACT and New South Wales borders. So a population, as you probably already know, of about 69,000 and growing. Our station is 24-hour, 7 days a week. We have nearly 40 members. They're divided into 6 teams and they work a rotating 24/7 roster. So there's always people on. The police station is always open. There's always someone in it. They attend between 700 and 800 incidents a month, and they can range from reports of crime to neighbourhood disputes to car accidents, that sort of thing. And lastly, how can the public help police? And with what we're doing, I go back to the very first point, and that is that if you see something that looks suspicious, it probably is. If it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it probably is a duck. And that's the information we want to get. It may not seem a lot at the time, but it may be the colour of a vehicle, or it might be a partial registration of a vehicle that leads us on to other things. The reason we say that is because it's not only the police responsibility to solve crime and to keep our community safe and secure, it's everybody's responsibility. We simply can't do it all by ourselves, and we actually need public help to make sure that we are living in a safe community. The last thing I'll touch on is a program that I've re-energised in Gungahlin. That's a school liaison program. We've allocated a liaison officer for all the high schools and colleges. They're just about to do the same for the primary schools. This is an opportunity for our members to better engage with the school kids. You've got 2 of the largest public schools in the ACT here in Amaroo, which has just over 1,800 students, and Harrison School, which has almost 1,800. They're huge amounts of people to be in one place. And I don't call them a vulnerability, but they are an issue for us to have almost 2,000 people located in one location within our patrol. And it does serve us well to know the school, know the students, know the staff. So we're going to continue with that and continue with that style of youth engagement because they are our future. They are the ones who will help us solve our problems and also keep us safe. So I'm happy to answer questions on notice, without notice, and if I can't answer them, I'll certainly get back to you through the committee.
I've certainly got a question. So Rod, obviously Gungahlin growing very quickly. Does your team grow the same size, same rate as Gungahlin?
That's a proposal that's gone forward. I should say though that ACT policing, we're not an island within the ACT here. So although I say my patrol area is a certain area, the borders or the patrol boundaries don't really exist, and our dispatch model is that we deploy the closest available and most appropriate resource to an incident. So at any one time, although I might only have 40 cops working out of the police station here, I'll have all the other areas, so City and Belconnen stations, which are the closest. Their patrols are also floating around. Traffic operation, our special response group, a whole host of other areas. Just before I got here, one of our process serving cars, so it's an unmarked police car with 2 members in it who are actually doing some legal and judicial support work, are just around the corner. So it's not the case that it's only 40 police for here. We actually got the resources of ACT policing there with us. I should say that ACT policing, being a business arm of the AFP, also has a very well-resourced big brother if the balloon goes up, if there's something that we need more resources for.
What about liaison with, say, Queanbeyan and the surrounding territory?
Yep. So I have a fairly good working relationship with the 5 inspectors, the duty inspectors at Queanbeyan for the Monaro LAC, and in fact the superintendent from there, Rod Smith, actually lives in Gungahlin. In fact, a lot of Queanbeyan police live in Gungahlin. A lot of them actually live in a particular suburb, which is interesting. Look, we get on really well with them. And we've also got the benefit of colleagues at YAS, and we've worked with them on quite a few jobs when we've sort of chased crooks up through Mulligan's Flat, and in the fire that we had out at Mulligan's Flat between here and Sutton a couple of months ago, we pretty much worked hand in hand. They couldn't get to the residential properties on this side of the fire, so our patrols actually went up. We probably had 4 or 5 patrols up there assisting with evacuations and just warning people and giving updates of what was sort of going on.
Thank you.
Do you have foot patrols and go through the shopping centres and things?
Yeah, we do, and in the same way that we have allocated members to for the particular schools, the teams are actually allocated certain clusters of suburbs. So amongst the 6 teams that I have, they're responsible as a point of contact for the suburbs. So they routinely go to either the schools or the shops there. I actually encourage them to sit down in the cafes, have a coffee, because believe it or not, cops actually drink coffee. We don't eat donuts in this country, but we do drink coffee. And rather than have them sitting in the police station where you're not seeing them, I actually encourage them to be out and about, and if they want to stop and have a coffee, stop and have a coffee in the shops. It's a lot easier for me to sell it that way as well, to say we're going for a coffee.
Sorry, I came from a long time in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Taking donuts.
No donuts for.
Some, school teachers and so forth sometimes think it's not a good idea to be living in the same area. Do people police in Gungahlin live in Gungahlin, or is it a policy to live outside?
No, there's no policy at all, and it's comes down to more of personal preference. I'd say, and I've never actually really checked, but I'd say probably 75-80% of my members live in Gungahlin itself. We don't have a problem with that. You get treated as you treat people, and I'm pretty happy with the police that we've got there and that we have in Gungahlin and the attitude they have, which is very positive, can do, and fairly committed to keeping our community safe. Now, sure, we're going to come into contact with some people who don't like that idea and they don't like police. That's part of the job, and it's more a personal thing. And I've always worked and lived in the community that I've worked in, so I've been doing this a long time and never had a problem. So, touch wood.
With all the roadworks in and around Gungahlin,
yep.
have you and your staff see evidence of increased bad driving as a consequence of people trying to avoid the various traffic problems that we currently experience?
Yeah, rather than say it's a Gungahlin issue, I think a lack of tolerance on the road, sometimes to do with roadworks, is a common phenomenon. Before I came to Gungahlin, I was the officer in charge of traffic operations, and we would always run a yearly campaign for the King's Highway. And the worst behaviours and the highest collision rates always occurred on the King's Highway between here and Batemans Bay when roadworks were occurring. And the reason for that was that people would be slowed down at roadworks, and then they had the mentality that they need to drive faster because it's 2 hours to Batemans Bay, it's 2 hours to the coast. I've been held up for a couple of minutes here, so I need to drive a little faster. So yeah, that has happened. Yeah.
We've got one from Facebook here. What are the response time incidents?
For various incidents. Yep.
That's what the question is.
Yep. Okay. So our dispatch protocol has 3 levels of response, which are pretty much priority 1, 2, and 3. The priority ones are within 10 minutes. It used to be within 7 minutes, and in the last round of discussions with the government, it was raised to 10 minutes. Even when it was 7 minutes, we rarely sort of go under that anyway. And even now that it's 10 minutes, we rarely go under 7 minutes. Go over 7 minutes. And so therefore life-threatening type emergencies. The priority 2s are within 20 minutes, and priority 3s are within 24 to 48 hours after negotiating with the person who's making the complaint. So they're for things where they don't need police immediately, but they need them within the next day or so to report some type of incident. I should mention the other emergency services also have a performance indicator in relation to response times, but unlike the fireys and the ambos, our members are not based at the station and purely response. Unless they've got a reason to be in the police station, they won't be there. They'll be out on patrol. So their ability to respond is enhanced because they're actually already mobile. And that's just the different models that we have between the different emergency services.
Just a last question probably. If someone wants to join the police volunteering program, say how they do it, does it happen on a particular
it does.
time frame? Or?
It sounds a bit strange. We actually recruit police volunteers in a similar sort of way that we recruit police. We go through an induction program. We do some background checks, obviously, but it's a fairly popular volunteering sort of pastime. They recently won an award, the ACT Volunteers Award, for the program. It's really quite successful. Our volunteers, we have the volunteers, and the main place you would see them is in the front office our police stations, all of the police stations, where they not only provide that meet and greet service, they are generally all JPs, so they sign, witness and sign documents and stat decks, and they also provide advice, sort of general advice to people who come to the police station. So we do have a recruiting sort of round, usually once a year.
I've never heard of it.
And we get people from all walks of life. We get obviously a lot of retired people. We've actually got a lot of younger people who volunteer. And not only do they work in the front office of the stations, they also do things like catering for major events. They assist with training. They're really good role players. They play the victim very well. And they drive a bus around, so they cart police from around different places if there's events on and that sort of thing. So they're a great resource for us, and it's a really good motivator for a young constable to see a retired person come into the station off their own bat, volunteer to do work, talk to the community, always bright and chirpy. It's a really good motivator for me to point towards that person and say, they're doing it for nothing. Lift your game. Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, hang on. Is there a JP on hand at Gungahlin during business hours?
Yeah, generally it's 4 days a week. I think Thursdays, and we have a bit of an overlap on Fridays, but Thursdays I think we don't have anyone on Thursdays. All right, thanks for your time.
Yeah, no, golf. It's great. Golf and good police stuff. Right? No, it's always been a feature of the Gungahlin to have the emergency services station there, right there where it's visible. I think that helps a lot. So moving on, our second speaker today is Donella Johnston. She's with Sea Change, and is going to talk to us a little bit about the programs you operate here in Gungahlin. Good. Motivation. What's Kevin done with it?
Just while we're plugging that in, there's still plenty of food at the back if anybody wanted a snack.
I've got a copy of it.
Okay. There with me, team.
I'll pass around the mail around the newsletter.
One on the phone.
Oh, right. Let me get out, bring multiple computers.
While that's being set up, and so we don't have some just clean space running on the Facebook live stream, just wanted to just talk about the Celebrate Gungahlin Festival that was on last week. It was a huge success, and hopefully you all managed to get down there and check it all out. We've actually grown the Celebrate Gungahlin Festival over the last 3 years. We've essentially tripled the number of stall holders from the first year. We estimate there's around 10,000 people there present throughout the day. And we've received a lot of positive feedback. We ran a survey last week that we've gone through the results of that and looking at what improvements we can do for next year. So the plan is to bring it back for 2018. So keep an eye on all the usual social media feeds for that. And I think we're now ready to hear about Sea Change.
go to the podium.
Oh, great.
And I will make clicking happen.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to Peter and to Kevin for inviting me along this evening to tell you a little bit about sea change in Gungahlin. And I just want to acknowledge my colleague Marie Ryan, who's also a member of Sea Change Gungahlin, who's here tonight, and a couple of women from the Northside Community Service up the back there, Rita and Barbara, who we shared a store with last week at the Celebrate Gungahlin Community Festival. So my name's Danella. I'm the convener of the Gungahlin Sea Change group. Tonight I'm just going to tell you a little bit about who Sea Change are, a little bit about our group here in Gungahlin, which is relatively new, a little bit about the transition streets program, which we're just about to finish, and then we'll have a little bit of time for questions, so it should only be about 10 minutes or so. So Sea Change is about inspiring, informing and supporting action to reduce Canberra's ecological footprint. We're a community not-for-profit group that aims to, create more sustainable communities in Canberra. The ecological footprint is one of the main things that we're on about, and just in terms of what an ecological footprint is, this is it's quite interesting. Per capita, the ecological footprint is the per capita use of biologically active land and water measured in global hectares. It measures the amount needed to supply the resources that a human population consumes, but also the waste that's produced from that consumption. And this is quite interesting as well. The Earth is able to provide 1.7 global hectares per person. That's what it has the capacity to do. It's currently the population, one person is using 2.6 global hectares. So we really need another Earth to sustain our current consumption and waste absorption. Australians per capita are using 8.2 global hectares, and Canberra, which is the highest in Australia, is the average Canberran is using 8.9 global hectares for their ecological footprint. So we've got a little bit of work to do in Canberra. So the ultimate challenge for Canberra is having a sustainable footprint and reducing our greenhouse gas emissions while improving the resilience of the ecosystem and the well-being of all individuals. Much of the work in Sea Change is about advocating positive social change to address these challenges. So what is Sea Change? It was established in 2006 by a retired university professor called Bob Douglas. As I mentioned, it's a community-based not-for-profit. There's currently 5 groups active in Canberra. So the Woden group is the oldest group, the Gungahlin group is the newest group, and there's also a Belconnen group and an Inner North and Inner South group. And our major sponsor is the ACT Government's Environment Planning and Sustainable Development Directorate. Sea Change, the C in Sea Change stands for Society, Environment and the Economy, and it addresses societal issues and its aim is to address societal issues and increase positive social interactions to reduce our impact on the environment and improving connections within our ecosystems and strengthening our economy and enhancing local economy systems. Some of the projects, and this isn't the only list, if you go to the website you can see our current list of projects, but here's just a sample. We have sustainable house tours, so recently we've had one in Womboyne and one in Gundaroo. We have a program for solar panel electric bike bulk buys. We have bicycle trailer rentals, sustainability talks, film nights. There's Parliament of Youth project for school, Jerrabomba Wetlands project, and the one I'll talk to you about tonight is the Transition Streets program. And how do we do this? We do it by providing opportunities for the community to come together to share ideas. We have inclusive and non-hierarchical approaches with a focus on practical activities, and we provide support for volunteers. We do projects that are important to individuals and groups, and we continually incorporate a social aspect to our activities. So just the picture isn't as clear as I'd like it to be, but just a snapshot of some of those activities that Sea Change are involved in. So local groups and individuals, practical activities and workshops, some of our workable project models, and there's, I think you see there in the corner is the bike trailer. Engaging with youth and transition streets. This is Gilruth Street in Hackett, which appeared in, if you get the City News, just a couple of weeks ago, it was page 3 of the City News, so that, and it's also been in the Canberra Times, so it's a really good example of transition streets. They've got an honesty box, so they've got a food honesty box, so the gardeners in the street put their food in on Saturday, and they have an honesty box there, and all the fruit and vegetables gone by Sunday. They also have lots of community events. So Sea Change in Gungahlin was established in 2015. They had their first meeting here at the library on the 9th of February 2015, and other events that we've held here include a footprint event on the 23rd of April, Gardening in Gungahlin event in May, and we had our relaunch in October of last year. I mentioned we've also had a presence in stalls at local community events, including the Flavours of Bonner event last year and the Celebrate Gungahlin event this year. And we're currently working through the Transition Streets program. It's just a picture of our relaunch over at the community centre, Communities at Work. When the Sea Change group, when Sea Change first met here in 2015, there were a whole bunch of ideas for projects that were collected, and here's a sample of some of those projects. So people were really interested in starting street banks, which is like a neighbourhood registry for garden tools, household items, and basically sharing things. So instead of having, say, a lawnmower for every household, you could have, a neighbourhood lawnmower, and the same with other things. So ride share program and the Little Free Libraries. Have people heard of Little Free Libraries? Little Free Libraries are little book boxes, waterproof book boxes that people have out the front of their houses, and you can put a book in there that you've finished reading and take a book out that someone else has put in there. So it's encouraging community connection. There's a little notebook in there. You sign out the book that you take, and you might have a little comment there about when you bring it back about how you found that book. In the UK, the red phone boxes have been turned into these little free libraries. So you'll often go in there and find in country villages it's turned into a little library, or sometimes they keep the village defibrillator in the phone box, which is interesting. Community gardens were really popular as well. So Transition Streets began in Totnes in Devon in the UK about 10 years ago. And I mentioned the local example in Gilruth Street, Hackett, and there's a number of other groups around Canberra as well. It's a tried and tested award-winning behaviour change project to cut resource use, energy, water, food, waste and transport are the 5 areas that we work in, and to strengthen neighbourhood communities. And this is the area that I'm really interested in, this idea of social isolation and social cohesion, and how bringing people together on a common topic can sometimes break down some of those issues of loneliness and disconnection that are ironically appearing more and more in cities rather than in country areas, which tend to be quite socially connected. So Transition Streets is a way for neighbours, friends to come together and support each other to reduce their ecological footprint. So that's the topic of the meetings, but also to help save money and become more connected to their local community. The street could be a group of neighbours. It could be neighbours in an apartment complex, or it could be any other combination of friendship groups. So our Transition Streets group is 3 households, and we don't actually live in the same suburbs, we live in different suburbs, but we meet together at each other's houses at different months to go work through the program. And as I mentioned, the program consists of 7 chapters, which you pick up from the Sea Change office. It looks like that at the moment, it's just been revised. There's a getting started section and a wrapping up section, and in between that there's sections looking at water, energy, food, transport, waste and consumption. So we're about to do the waste and consumption program next weekend. Each group meets mostly every month. It can be sooner or later, depending on what you're up for, and you look at one of the topics. And you decide together as a group what you can do in your own homes and communities to move towards a more sustainable lifestyle. Some of the outcomes of your Transition Streets program might be to organise and host a community event such as a film night, which is really popular, street parties, or a local food gathering, which helps bring people together to connect, share knowledge, skills and resources around sustainability. The Gungahlin Transition Streets program started in November 2016. As I mentioned, we have 3 households involved. We're happy to come and assist other groups who want to get started. We can co-facilitate a group. We also have a person in our group who is setting her house up to be a sustainable house. She's got some amazing examples around her house and she's happy to host a meeting there. So she's got some exciting sustainable initiatives in her home. There's funding available too. There's about $200 available if you have a particular project that your group wants to work on as well. So it might be, well, it could be anything you want in those 5 different areas. And this program is supported by the ACT Government and Communities at Work. So I've sent around a newsletter sign-up sheet, and if you're interested in finding out what's happening in Gungahlin, I'll put you on our mailing list. We've got about 50 people on our mailing list of 15 local members. You can have a look at our website for events and some of the other projects. You can come along to an upcoming event. We have something going on every week, be it a sustainable house tour or a sustainability talk. And if you're really motivated, you could start a Transition Streets program in your own neighbourhood or with your own friends. It works a little bit like a book club. And that's it. I just wanted to say, if there's a really good summary of what Sea Change is about in the last edition of Smoke Signals. Our executive officer has written an article about Sea Change, which I really recommend you have a look at. You can probably access that from the Gungahlin Community Council website. So does anyone have any questions? Yes?
Going back earlier, you were talking about hectares, global hectares. That the basis of that idea, because, say, in Australia, we may have a cattle station that's about the size of England, running one piece for every 100 acres. So how can you compare that with something, say, in the south of England where there's lots of farms that have very intense farming?
Well, you can't, so they're average figures. Yeah, so we can only work with average figures. So the average for the ACT is 8.9, but it'd be the same thing. Like in a farming community, it might be quite different. So is that what you're asking?
I'm just saying that it seems to me it's not comparable to where things are sourced. It's like saying comparing apples and oranges.
Yeah, I didn't make it up.
No, I know. That just struck me.
Yeah, there's have a look. There's a global footprint network website which might explain it in a little bit more detail. So it's Global Footprint Network, and it's got some good information there. And the WWF website has got an interactive footprint calculator that you can work out your individual footprint. It's worth having a look at as well. The World Wildlife Fund. Good question, thank you. Point taken. Yes?
Why is the Canberra number so high? What are the major contributing factors to it?
It's to do with the fact that Canberra is a very affluent city and we consume more. We drive more, we don't use public transport as much as other urban places.
Probably throw things away more.
Yeah, we're quite wasteful. Even though we've won awards for sustainability, we still consume more. So it's about eating out, it's about purchasing more consumable products, all that sort of stuff, and it has to do with our relative income.
So
So from my perspective, which is where I come from, dry shed equivalent is basically how many sheds you can run on a certain amount of space, how much they can consume. Whereas what you're talking about is both consumption and disposal. So,
Yep.
you know, we dispose of a lot of things that we shouldn't. We'll buy plastic containers and we've got to throw them out. So
Yep.
it's that disposal side that is boosting the ACT population up a fair way.
Yep, absolutely.
What's your relationship with other organisations like GCC?
Lots, very close relationships with Beyond Zero Emissions. We have relationships with 350.org, with the Australian Youth Climate Coalition, with the Environment and Planning and Sustainable Development Directorate, with just about everyone. You could, like the Food Co-op, with the Conservation Council, the Environment Centre, all different organisations. So actually, if you go to the website, and you go to the project section, there's transition towns, but there's also a section that says transition streets. There's also a section that says transition towns, and there's a great mind map there that shows you all those different connections. It's really worth having a look at. I think it's called the activities map, and it shows you all the different things that different groups in Canberra are doing. And there's like 100 different organisations there, and all the different connections in different areas around energy, food, waste.
So do you have any connections with some of our local groups like Grace Community?
Yeah, we have been in touch with each other, and I've got in touch with the Canberra Organic Growers Society. I know they were very involved in the Grace community garden. So yeah, I have had contact with various groups. Thank you.
Nothing from the website.
So there's our...
There's been a little bit, somebody's asked for more information, various things, and I've linked them straight to it. So there's a bit more information then from the comments of the live stream as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Righty. We're catching up well on our agenda. So our third speaker today is Emma Davidson. Emma, here, terrific. Thank you. Emma's with the Women's Centre for Health Matters and has been working on a project mapping the safety of Canberra. So I'll jump over here and do Techo stuff. Stand up there. Get all right. Good to go.
Okay, thanks. Hi everyone. So my name's Emma Davidson. I'm from the Women's Centre for Health Matters. So we're a community-based not-for-profit organisation. We've been around for 26 years in Canberra. So what we do is we receive grant funding from ACT Health to do health promotion, social research, community development, capacity building and advocacy. And we're very much focused on what are the needs of women in Canberra, in particular their health needs, but that also covers some of the socio-economic determinants of health as well. So, you know, it's very hard to be healthy if it's hard for you to get out and be active in your community. So hence why I'm here to talk to you tonight. We've been running a project called Safety Mapping. What we're doing is we're encouraging people to go to our website where there's a link through to a safety map where people can tell us where in Canberra they're feeling safe or unsafe and why they're feeling that way. So we've been collecting some data, and I wanted to come in here tonight and share with you what we've learned about the Gungahlin area so far. There's no time limit on this project. You can keep on contributing to it, and we're basically meeting with the ACT Planning Directorate regularly to pass on that information and let them know what people are saying about particular areas, so they can take that into account for things like, revising master plans, or if there are particular areas that look like they need attention. So, some of the results that I wanted to share with you. When I go in and look at the map and look at the results, I see things like this, where people have either put a pinpoint on a map to show me this is an area where something's going on, or they'll highlight an entire area, like there's a big red circle or an orange square, to let me know everything that's going on in this area is, something I want to tell you about. So I wanted to tell you about some of the things that are happening. So we've had around about 32 results for Gungahlin so far, where we will keep getting results in. Just by comparison, we've had probably twice that number of reports just about Hague Park in Braddon. So what this is telling me is that actually Gungahlin is not triggering as many feelings of being unsafe as what, say, Hague Park in Braddon is at night, which is, that's what I'd probably expect. But it is something that I wanted to share with you. About half the reports that we had were for the Gungahlin Town Centre, so just around this area and up here towards the parks. The vast majority of what we received reports about were around parks, public parks, and areas where people might congregate to, say, wait for a bus or go to a skate park or something like that. We only had 2 people give us reports of where they were feeling safe. Everyone else was telling us where they were feeling unsafe. That's actually pretty normal for safety map data. Most people, when you're walking around feeling good, you're not even thinking about wanting to tell the world about it. If you're walking around in a public space and you're not feeling good because there's something going on that makes you feel unsafe, you are going to want to let someone know so that we can fix it. So that is pretty normal. We do, though, encourage people to let us know if there are areas where they do feel safe, because that's a useful comparison for us. So if I just take, for example, say, bus interchanges, that's an area where we will typically get reports of people's feelings of safety. We had people telling us that they felt safe around the Belconnen community bus interchange because it was well lit, the footpaths were really nice and even, and there were lots of people in the area just, going about their normal business. So they felt like that was a safe place to be. By comparison, we were getting a lot of people saying they felt unsafe in the Woden bus interchange because the opposite things were happening. They felt like it was too deserted, or the people that they were seeing were not people that they felt might help them if they got into trouble. We had one person on a particular day when there were lots of Action employees there tell us they felt safe. So it is actually useful when people tell us about areas that are particularly good, because then we can look at, okay, how do we make an area safe again? The vast majority of people who fill in safety map reports are women, but we do get reports from men as well, and that's also useful for us. But yeah, the vast majority of the people who use it are women. We tend to find that the sort of things that make women feel safe in an area will make everyone else feel safe as well. So if we can improve feelings of safety in public spaces, more women will use that space, but also more people of all ages, young people, elderly people, people with disabilities as well, and people who are just generally feeling like, they need to know that other people can see where they are and what they're doing, just in case they run into problems. So some of the comments that people were making about areas, they were saying, we were getting a lot of people saying things like dodgy and dark. So they would point out an area, like for example, down here, in this pathway that goes through there, and they would point out that there might be, say, a lighting problem, and that the only people that they're seeing in that area are, particularly after dark, are people that they feel like might not help them if they were having problems. Another thing that makes people feel like it's not a safe space is if they see a lot of graffiti and vandalism and litter lying around. This makes a lot of sense. When we've done research in the past to talk to people about, why things feel safe or unsafe, to try and unpack that a little bit. If you're going into an area and all you're seeing is signs of past negative social behaviour, then you're going to feel like that's all that goes on in that area. If you go into an area and you see that there's good clear footpaths, there's good lighting, and the other people that are in the area are just going about their normal daily business, maybe going to cafes or using the library or catching buses or whatever, you're going to feel like, oh yes, this is an area where anyone can go any time of the day and things will be fine. Okay, so I can point out a few of the areas that people were saying they felt unsafe in. So pretty much generally all around the Yarrabee Pond area, people were talking about lighting issues. People also talked about this area down here. It sounds like there are people who go through this area commuting, either riding their bikes or walking and running, and they've got issues with lighting. So this is Gungahlin Drive and
Gungahlin Drive, that's on the lakes.
Near Gungahlin Lakes.
Yeah, okay. So people were telling us that the lighting and the footpaths around there, they don't feel great about that, and it's also very deserted and that sort of thing. We did get a few reports from cyclists about particular areas where getting up and onto footpaths and from cycle paths was difficult because of ramp access or something like that. So that's useful information for us to be able to pass on to the Directorate.
And would the city government normally light, the walking / cycle paths around the pond like that? They would. So it's unusual that Gungahlin isn't lit, for example, compared to some other lake or pond in the ACT?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're...
So during the day, it gets a lot of use, but
Yeah. I'm not sure what their rules are for, how they make decisions about where to install lighting and where not to, but certainly the fact that people are using that area and telling us how they feel about it is really useful feedback for us to be able to pass on to them to say, look, people are wanting to use this space. If it was well lit, you would find that they would use it even more. Because what happens is you get this really nice positive cycle of use of a public space where, women will look at a space they're wanting to move into and go, it's dark, it's deserted, if anything happens to me, no one's going to be able to help me or know about it, and they won't go in there. Once they start seeing a few people using it, other women will be looking at that space and going, oh, this is okay, it's, people are using it, and then even more go into it, and it just builds and builds and you get a really popular space. So I guess we've got to start somewhere. Yeah, I couldn't honestly tell you, whether they might do that, but it's certainly they're very interested in getting the feedback. They're very keen for us to let them know what the community are, wanting to do in those spaces. They're as keen as everyone else is to, make sure that these are spaces where people feel safe and feel like they can go into it and, go about their normal daily activities. Does anyone have any questions about... Yes?
I'm wondering, in your mapping, do you get a distinction, and you're talking about the ponds and there's a clear distinction between day and night. Do you get distinctions between day and night? So I know personally I get scared, or you scared, I get scared if I go into what I feel is a claustrophobic space. It's tight, it's dark, it's nasty, and so that's more inclined to be a nighttime thing. If there's daylight, I can see what's happening, I've got visibility, people can see me, I feel far safer. Go into a tight dark space, I don't feel safe. So that's wondering, is there a bias towards nighttime over daytime or the other way around?
Yeah, I think you've really hit the nail on the head there for one of the key things that helps people to feel safe, and it is all about visibility. People want to be able to go into a space. I'll take Hague Park as an example. So a lot of the reports we got about Hague Park were about not feeling okay going there at night, even though it's a big open space and it's, you know, it's surrounded by busy areas, and it's because the kind of trees that they've got in that park don't let, even when there's a full moon, you don't see a lot of light there. So you're walking into a space where there's a lot of dark shadows and you don't know what's in them, that sort of thing.
Very narrow path.
Exactly. That's right. That's right.
I just finished putting in a wide path and extra lighting, I think, right now.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to, this is why we want to keep the survey open, so that as things change over time, you can look at how people feel over time and go, well, are we still getting reports of people feeling unsafe, or are we now starting to get reports of people saying, yeah, this area is good again? But yeah, it's a lot of it is about visibility. If you can't see what's in the area, then, you know, it's not going to feel safe going in there. And if what you can see is negative, you know, if it's, you know, we had reports of, like, to use people's exact words, dodgy people. That's a phrase that was commonly used about areas where they see people congregating in groups and doing things that they feel like, if anything happens to me, I'm not sure that those people are going to help me. Whereas if they're seeing a diversity of different, you know, people using a space, people generally feel safer going in there because they know they've got visibility. Someone's going to see and know if things go wrong. They're not going to feel like they're the odd one out in that space.
Do you have is there any relationship between these things and the police incidents that we heard about earlier?
Yeah, very little relationship between where people feel safe and where crime is actually happening. You can have an area where there are no reports of crime happening and you've got plenty of reports of people saying, I don't feel safe going into that area. Conversely, you can have reports of, you know, crime is actually happening in an area and we're not getting a lot of reports about it, and it could just be that maybe people aren't even going there at all. They're not even thinking about that space anymore. But yeah, I mean, just because there's no crime statistics for an area doesn't mean that it's an area where people feel safe. And the difficulty for us, the reason why we really want to try and understand where do people feel safe and try and do some advocacy work to improve people's feelings of public safety is that when you don't feel safe, you end up restricting your ability to get out in the community and make use of all these beautiful facilities that we've got. And we don't want people to have to do that. We want people to feel like, yep, this is a city where anyone can be safe to go anywhere and participate and do normal things. Yeah.
In some of the early consultation over the Gungahlin Drive application, particularly in Palmerston, there were concerns expressed that there are barriers from the road already existing and people felt unsafe if cycle paths were behind the barriers.
Uh-huh.
Now we're having noise barriers erected all along Gungahlin Drive, so that's going to exacerbate the problem.
Yeah, that is interesting. We haven't had any reports yet about those kind of barriers. Most of the reports that we've had are from people who are travelling on foot, so they're talking about, you know, walking or running in places. We've had reports about people where they go and do things like park run and things like that, and, you know, whether they feel like those are areas where they feel safe to go running. We've had a few reports about cyclists and where they feel safe to go, but yeah, we'd love to get some more data on that so we can better understand, you know, what helps women to participate in active travel. Yeah.
You mentioned that most of these reports are in the town centre. Are there any reports in the suburbs surrounding the town centre?
Yeah, about half the reports we've had so far have been in the town centre. The other reports that we've had are out in the suburbs. but they're mostly around public parks that are in the suburbs, like your neighbourhood town parks and places like that, or they're about commuter footpaths that connect the suburb to the town centre. Yeah.
In the sort of reports you get, you indicated sometimes it's things like, oh, it's really dangerous to cross the road here. It sounds like the majority of your reports are, I feel threatened by a possible person, or it's actually, I was going to say physical threat, but obviously it can't be a physical threat, but a threat from another individual. It seems to be one of the major safety concerns.
That's right, yeah. People are concerned about threats of the risk of assault, basically. That's something that worries people, and this is part of the reason why we're doing this, because that's the sort of thing that, when you have a conversation with with a woman about do you enjoy going running to stay fit, and they might say things like, oh yes, but it's really hard in winter because once it gets dark, I don't feel safe to go running. And when you start to unpack, what is it that makes you feel unsafe, they talk about things like it's dark, either the area is deserted, so if anyone does come into the area that's a threat to me, there's no one else who can help me or know that I'm in trouble, or the people that are in that space are people who look like they might not help me either. They might be, risky. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that stops people from being able to participate in normal daily activity, and we want to do something about it. Yeah. So any further questions?
We have a number of commuters catching a bus coming past our place. Is there any incidents of concern during winter when it's dark? Because they're traversing the hill reserves. There's absolutely no lighting whatsoever, so they're trying to get to the closest convenient bus stop.
Right, yep. And what suburb is that in? Oh, right, okay. We haven't had any reports about that sort of thing in that area. We have had reports from other parts of Canberra from people who catch buses talking about, visibility of being able to see the bus coming and, how far they have to step out onto, say, a cycle path or a footpath to be able to see and what else is going on in that area. So not just around bus interchanges, but also bus stops in areas where there's a bar nearby, and their concern is about having to stand there and wait quite a long time for the bus, and the only other people that they pass late at night are, people who are maybe on their way out of the bar and they don't feel that great about being in that area. We haven't had that about Gungahlin or Ngunnawal, about either the road safety issue or the who else is in the area. Doesn't mean to say that it's not there. We've only just recently started getting data about this area, so yeah, we'll be looking for more.
We'll do a bit of promotion to see if we can get some more data.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, it's these things. As you get more data, you get a much better picture of what's happening.
Do you just follow up?
Yeah.
Do you present the data you've collected back out in an anonymised form, obviously, or is it the only people that actually see the data aggregated is you?
So at the moment, the only people who are looking at the data coming in is us, right. And that's partly so that we can filter out the ones where people are just testing out the system and that sort of thing. We did get one report about someone feeling unsafe around Parliament House because a certain politician makes them feel a bit uncomfortable. So we can filter those out. That's not something that we need to report back.
I'm uncomfortable when I go to Parliament House and see the he's a policeman, so maybe that's an issue I have.
Yeah. But certainly we do want to be able to give this data back to the community regularly. We'll certainly be checking on it regularly and, passing the data back. The other thing we look out for is whether the Planning Directorate are looking at particular areas. So if we know that they're going to be looking at a particular area to revise, say, a master plan, or, because, say, light rail are putting in stops in that area soon, and now is a good time to let them know what needs to happen around those stops to make it feel like a good place to go. That's exactly the kind of thing that we will be looking out for, and pass that information to them at a time that can have the most impact. Yeah.
Do you have an app or something where they can
Yep, so if you go to our website there, wchm.org.au, and click through to the safety map, it does work on mobile, so it's it's essentially a website, but it's mobile friendly, so people can make reports of where they feel unsafe or safe while they're actually on the move. Oh, fantastic.
So if you identify a meeting, you actually give us something to leave for Crime Stoppers?
Yeah, look, we tend not to get people sending us reports about. Most of the reports that we're getting are not about criminal activity happening. It's about where people just don't feel safe because it's dark and it's deserted, or it's dark and there's only dodgy people there, or there's a lot of graffiti and vandalism, so they feel like nothing good is happening in this area. So that's most of what we're getting reports about. So that's the kind of thing that we're feeding through to places like the Planning Directorate, because they're in the best position to do something about lighting and things like that to make it feel safer. I mean, if we were getting reports to say, about criminal activity, then certainly we would want to pass that on to the right people. But most of what we're getting is about feeling unsafe rather than actual crime.
So that's kind of
That's right, yeah. And these emotions are really important, because what changes people's behaviour is how they feel about a thing. We all like to think that we're incredibly rational beings, and that we make our decisions based on evidence and that sort of thing. But the reality is that if you start walking into an area that's dark and deserted, and the only person you can see there is someone who you've had bad experiences with in the past, you're not going to feel great about going into that area, and you might just choose to cross the street and go in a different direction. So yeah, that's why we're doing this, because yeah, it's about how people feel, and that affects their behaviour.
Well, thank you very much. That's really interesting.
Thank you.
So that comes to, we've come to the end of our formal agenda. I'm not sure if David or with anything else, Mark, we had the piece on Celebrate Gungahlin. Did everyone manage to attend? I unfortunately couldn't be there, but I heard it went incredibly well, so it's good. Are there any other items from the floor that people would like to raise?
Any topic that anyone would like to see covered in the future?
I found out that because I went to there last week, and the newsletter had something to do with construction of the towers and so I don't know if this is
We are.
Has there been a response from the government apart from
So we raised this issue late last year with initially the Minister, but then with the ESPDD, the Environment Planning Sustainable Development Directorate, and they're the ones who've conducted the town centre planning refresh, essentially around the town centre plan clearly is not achieving its goals because all these large residential towers have been approved and are under construction. And so they've been running a series of consultations, both an online survey, a phone survey. They've had a couple of walk-up meetings in the town centre, and last Thursday there was a face-to-face workshop for a number of developers and community council representatives and other residents in Gungahlin and other stakeholders in Gungahlin. And again, a lot of those issues were teased out. The reality is that 3 projects of large towers, 10 floors or more, have already been approved. There's one currently seeking DA approval, and there are at least 2 others proposed in that area. Now, once they're approved, once the development application is approved, it's kind of put down your glasses. We've tried to raise the awareness, and we certainly highlighted the last DA, but the feedback we got from the ESPDD was that there were 3 residents who put in a representation indicating that that they had an opinion about the development. So, we're kind of aware that there's a general level of concern with it, but the actual activity of residents when it comes to actually put in a submission is quite low, which makes our position very difficult when representing the community view. But it's I guess it's fair to say the government's reacted to that complaint. They've engaged a process of review. A lot of data is being collected both online and through the workshops, and we're looking to see the recommendations that come out of that. But most of them are not how do we stop the towers, because most of them are already approved. There are a couple of projects that are yet to even go into the development application process. They're in pre-DA stage. Yes, that's one that's in pre-DA. That hasn't gone to DA. The 2 that are yet to go into DA are the Empire Global project, the 2 26-storey towers, and the one you've just mentioned, which I've forgotten the name of, but is in there. So. My sense is that there are some concerns around the 26-storey building, mostly because all the other buildings are a little bit back from residential areas, but that one is actually, if you look at the area that represents the town centre, it's the area of the town centre block that is closest to residences. There are 2-storey residences across the road from it. And I think talking to other developers who've had their developments reduced in size when they're adjacent to buildings from sort of 18-ish floors down to 14-ish floors and 8. My sense is that the developer is optimistic, would be my personal assessment of what I've heard for that particular project. The one that has no parking because people don't need cars, that is in a different location, and people will have to make the argument. And certainly the Community Council's put in a representation to those DAs, but in most cases they've been argued away that, well, the developments are not inconsistent with the planning rules as they currently stand, which clearly indicates the rules are not meeting community need. So. Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of how do we deal with the infrastructure issues of there'll be of the order of 3,000 residences in that block, which is about the size of a small suburb, and so what allowances there been made for green space, what allowances there been made for road infrastructure to and from it, what amenity has been provided for cycling and pedestrians both to and through that site. And then sort of bigger things like, well, if there are 3,000 residences, how many school kids will that include, and where are they going to go to school? So there's a number of basic infrastructure pieces that we've expressed considerable and constant and consistent concern about. And yeah, I'd agree with that. And so, the government's contended that in some areas they've been surprised by the rate of development, but they're in complete control of the rate of development because they essentially put the sites out there. And again, these sites have been picked on for developments because they're the only ones available in Gungahlin until the East Gungahlin town centre areas are made available for sale. So if you're a developer looking to build a high-rise, because clearly there's a demand for it, you're not going to build it out of the goodness of your heart. That only opportunity to do that has been on those sites, originally planned to be an office park, but no one wants to move out here, so that hasn't happened either. So, I mean, if you have an opinion, by all means let us know, but it's very important that all residents is aware that there are processes to comment on developments, and they need to comment, and if they don't, theoretically you should. So we should probably send a reminder out about that. Yeah, John.
I just noticed something that 2 weeks ago. The area from between the top, coming round, and behind the line, in that area is going to have
It's back here.
1,191 dwellings.
90.
1,191 dwellings, starting from the valley, Maple, Green Park, going down to Motorang area. See, I sitting up.
I'm sorry, I'm not. Are you talking about these areas here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are all zoned for essentially commercial sites.
Well,
There's signage on the site that suggests 1,000.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not aware of that sign. Yeah, I know. Yeah, this area here, it's being developed now.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I hadn't.
I just happened to surprise by the number.
I'm surprised it's that small because we know that in this area
Yeah.
they're building 3,000 dwellings, units. But so in this area it's much bigger. So I would expect that the maximum possible would be much larger.
I think
That's right. It's mixed use. It could, it'll be some combination of residential and commercial.
Let us try as much I understand, but that's the basis on it.
Okay. Right, well, yes, it's an East Lakes Football Club. Yeah, it's a one-storey development with somewhere on our website there's a summary of the presentation. They did look at a mixed-use development for that site with a club down the bottom and some residences above, but in the end were gun shy of it and just went with the club. Anyone else, or any other things else? Projects, opportunities, concerns, more big ideas, or one of the good initiatives from the festivals.
if we go to the future, we can do all the finding knowledge.
Yep. Yep. I notice Michael's here. Thank you for being here today, Michael. We do have apologies from Megan Fitzharris. It is a sitting day, but there's a lot that has to happen apparently. But we did get apologies from them. But we also, I forgot to set out reminders to the MLAs as well. So, but yeah, we can make a feature of that. Any other questions before I close? We'll be here for a little while to pack up, and you're welcome to have questions. Thank you again from our speakers. Were really interesting and a bit of a change from our relentless attack on planning. So it's great to have it. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Oh yes, good point. The next public meeting, we're being told we can't have this space because the college has got some exams here, so we'll almost certainly be at another location. We'll definitely be on in June. The July meeting is probably not going to go forward, but June will not be here. It will be somewhere, but it will not be here. We're just not quite certain yet. Yes, after this morning on 666, I'm less confident he'll be attending.
But he has committed.
But he had committed to attend and discuss the federal election commitment he made to facilitate a government agency to be moved into Gungahlin. And he indicated that he couldn't say anything until after the budget. And then I'm not sure that milestone has helped anything based on his response this morning. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so we're hoping to do that. We're also hoping to have an update from what used to be called Action Buses. It's now TCC, Transport Canberra, and the bus service around the bus station, and integration as well. So look forward to that, and we'll look out for a notification on exactly where the venue will be for next June. Oh, one more.